Welcome to episode 3 of the Psychological Safety Series for Nurses, brought to you by Healthcare Nurses Network and the Nurses Link Up app, the platform where nurses connect, communicate, and collaborate. This episode reveals a powerful truth: psychological safety is the foundation of strong, high-performing teams. Whether you are a bedside nurse, a nurse leader, or a healthcare executive, you have seen how fear, hesitation, and poor communication can lead to mistakes, burnout, and team dysfunction. But what if there was a better way? Join James Carter, BSN, RN, an experienced ICU nurse, and Emily Ramirez, MSN, RN, a dedicated nurse manager, as they explore Dr. Nicholas Abella's article, How Psychological Safety Transforms Team Dynamics and Relationships. They will discuss why some nursing teams thrive while others struggle with fear and silence, how psychological safety improves decision-making, teamwork, and communication, practical strategies to foster a no-blame culture, encourage open dialogue, and strengthen relationships. If you have ever felt unheard in your workplace, struggled with ineffective team dynamics, or wondered how to create a culture of trust and accountability, this episode is for you. Let's dive in and transform how we lead, collaborate, and care for our patients, teams, and ourselves.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Healthcare Nurses Network podcast.
Yeah.
We're here each week to empower you with insights and real-world solutions
That's right.
to really help you thrive in your nursing careers.
Absolutely.
And today, we're diving into a topic that is so crucial
Yeah.
for building those strong and effective nursing teams.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about psychological safety.
Yeah.
Now, you hear this term a lot,
You do.
but we're going beyond the buzzwords today.
Right.
We're breaking down exactly why psychological safety is so important,
Yeah.
how it impacts patient care,
Mm-hmm.
and most importantly, how you can actually foster it
Yeah.
within your own teams.
Absolutely.
And to guide us today,
Yeah.
we're using the TEAM framework,
That's right.
which is T-E-A-M, pronounced team.
That's right.
We'll be unpacking each element of this framework
Mm-hmm.
and really showing you how to apply it in your everyday work.
Right.
All of our insights today
Mm-hmm.
are drawn from Dr. Nicholas Abella's excellent Psychological Safety Series, Article 3.
Yes.
So if you want to dive deeper after this,
Mm-hmm.
you know where to go.
Right.
Okay, so for those who might be new to this whole concept,
Mm-hmm.
can you explain what psychological safety actually is
Sure.
in a way that doesn't make it sound like something you'd read in a textbook?
Absolutely. So think of it this way. Have you ever been in a situation at work
Mm-hmm.
where you felt a little hesitant to speak up?
Yeah,
Maybe about a concern you had or
Mhm.
a question.
sure.
Maybe you were worried about how your question would be perceived,
Mm-hmm.
or if you'd be kind of ridiculed for not knowing something.
Right.
That feeling of holding back, that's the opposite of psychological safety.
Yeah.
In a psychologically safe environment, you feel totally comfortable
Mhm.
sharing your thoughts and ideas,
Right.
even if they're different.
Okay.
Or you're not 100% sure you're right.
I see what you mean. And the article mentions that fear-based cultures
Yes.
can lead to actually worse performance, which is interesting because it seems a bit counterintuitive,
It does, yeah.
doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But when you really think about it,
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense.
Okay.
When people are walking on eggshells, afraid to speak up,
Mm-hmm.
mistakes are more likely to be swept under the rug.
Right.
Vital information doesn't get shared.
Mm-hmm.
Problems fester under the surface.
Yeah.
So ultimately, it creates this breeding ground for errors.
Okay.
And it prevents teams from functioning at their best.
I see. Yeah. And the article gives a really striking example
It does.
of a nurse who notices
Right.
a doctor making a documentation error
Uh-huh.
in a culture of fear. That nurse might hesitate to say anything.
Right.
But in a psychologically safe environment, they speak up.
Yeah,
The error is corrected immediately,
absolutely.
and a potentially dangerous situation is avoided.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really powerful stuff.
Really is, yeah. It highlights how psychological safety isn't just about making people feel good.
Right.
It's about creating an environment where everyone feels empowered
Yeah.
to contribute to patient safety.
And it's really amazing
Yeah.
how much research there is in the article to back all of this up.
Yes, there is.
Was there anything in those findings
Mhm.
that really stood out to you?
One that resonated with me was that teams with high psychological safety are much more resilient under pressure.
Okay.
And let's face it, nursing is a high-pressure profession.
For sure.
We face those constant challenges,
Right.
from staffing shortages
Right.
to complex patient cases.
Right.
So having that resilience, that ability to bounce back and support each other
Yeah,
when things get tough is essential.
I completely agree. Okay, so let's dig into this team framework a bit.
Okay.
The first pillar is trust through transparency.
Yes.
How do we start building that trust within a nursing team?
Right. So it all starts with leadership.
Okay.
Nurse managers, CNOs charge nurses they need to be the champions of transparency.
Got it.
And that means being open about decision-making processes, being willing to admit when they've made a mistake, and actively encouraging open dialogue among team members.
Okay.
It's about creating an environment
Right.
where people feel like they can trust their leaders and each other.
And the article gave a great example
It did.
of a nurse using SBR,
Right?
that's Situation Background Assessment Recommendation,
Yep.
to communicate a concern she had about a medication order.
Uh-huh.
And the charge nurse thanked her for speaking up,
Yes.
which is so great to see.
It is.
Because that's such a simple but effective way to reinforce that trust.
It really is. And for those who might not be familiar with SBR,
Yeah.
it's a structured communication technique that helps nurses convey critical information clearly and concisely.
Right.
It helps ensure that everyone's on the same page
Yeah.
and that important details don't get lost in translation.
Okay.
So in that example, the nurse used SBR
Right. Yeah.
to communicate the issue quickly and clearly. And the charge nurse, instead of getting defensive, acknowledged the concern and thanked her
Yeah.
for bringing it to her attention.
I see.
So that kind of response sends such a powerful message.
Absolutely.
It shows that speaking up is valued
Right.
and appreciated.
And that kind of open communication can really set the tone
And,
for the entire team.
it creates a ripple effect. When nurses see their leaders modeling transparency and vulnerability, they're more likely to do the same.
Got it.
It becomes part of the team's DNA.
Okay, so we've established this foundation of trust through transparency.
Yes.
What's the next step in this team framework?
The next pillar is encourage and normalize speaking up.
Okay, so we've got the trust. How do we create the space
Right.
where people feel comfortable voicing their concerns, asking questions, sharing their ideas?
Well, it's about fostering a culture where speaking up is not only accepted but expected.
Okay.
And one way to do this is by consistently asking open-ended questions. During team huddles or meetings,
Right.
things like, what challenges are you facing?
Right.
Or what could we be doing better?
Yeah.
It invites people to share their perspectives without feeling like they're putting themselves on the spot.
I love that idea. But it's also important to remember
Yeah.
that not everyone feels comfortable
Right.
speaking up in a group setting.
No, they don't.
So what are some ways that we can encourage those
Yeah.
who might be a little more hesitant
Sure.
to share their thoughts?
That's where things like anonymous feedback systems can be incredibly valuable.
Okay.
They provide a safe space
Right.
for people to voice their concerns without fear of retaliation or judgment.
Right.
It allows them to contribute their ideas without feeling like they're putting themselves on the line.
That's a great point. So we've built trust.
Yeah.
We're encouraging open communication.
Right.
What's next?
The next pillar in the team framework is accountability without blame. This one can be a bit tricky,
Yeah.
but it's so crucial for creating a truly psychologically safe environment.
I can see how that could be challenging.
Yeah,
Can you elaborate on that a bit?
sure.
What does accountability without blame look like in practice?
It's about shifting our mindset
Okay.
from who messed up to what can we learn from this?
Right.
Instead of pointing fingers when something goes wrong, we need to focus on understanding why it happened,
Okay.
what systems or processes might have contributed to the issue.
I see.
It's about looking for solutions, not scapegoats.
So it's taking a more systemic view of things.
Exactly.
Rather than placing the blame on individuals.
It's about creating a culture where people feel safe to admit mistakes
Right.
because they know they won't be punished or humiliated.
Uh-huh.
They know that the focus will be on learning and improvement,
Right.
not on assigning blame.
That's such an important distinction.
Yeah,
Okay, so we've covered 3 pillars of the team framework so far.
we have.
What's the final piece of the puzzle?
The final pillar is model and mentor psychological safety.
Okay.
And this one's all about leadership. Leaders set the tone for the entire team
Right.
when they openly admit their own mistakes. Model vulnerability.
Okay.
Actively seek feedback. It gives permission for everyone else to do the same.
It's like they're saying, hey, it's okay to not be perfect.
That's right.
It's okay to ask for help. We're all in this together.
Exactly. And it's not just about words. It's about actions.
Okay.
It's about leaders consistently demonstrating those behaviors
Right.
that create that psychologically safe environment.
The article has this incredibly powerful example
Yes.
of a nurse manager who, during a really intense staffing crisis, opened up to her team about her own struggles with stress. And by being so vulnerable,
Right.
it allowed the rest of the staff to talk about burnout
Yeah.
and find solutions together. So it created this amazing sense of connection and support within the team.
That's such a great example of how modeling vulnerability can be a strength, not a weakness.
Right.
It can break down barriers,
Yeah.
build trust, create a space where everyone feels comfortable sharing their experiences and supporting each other.
That's fantastic. So we've covered all 4 pillars of the team framework,
They have.
but we're just getting started.
That's right.
After a quick break, we'll be back to discuss how you can apply these principles in your everyday work as nurses.
Yes.
So stay tuned.
We'll be right back.
Welcome back, everyone.
Yeah.
So we've been really exploring this concept of psychological safety
Yes.
in nursing teams
Yeah.
and how it can really transform your work environment.
Absolutely.
We delved into the team framework,
We did.
which really gives us this practical roadmap
That's right.
for fostering this essential element in healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
So TEAM stands for trust through transparency,
Yes.
encourage and normalize speaking up, accountability without blame,
Yep.
and model and mentor psychological safety.
Right.
So we've laid the groundwork.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about how to apply these principles
Okay.
in your day-to-day nursing practice.
Absolutely. Let's start with nurses at the bedside.
Okay.
What can you do right now
Yeah.
to contribute to a more psychologically safe environment for your team?
That's a great question because sometimes it can feel like
Yeah.
these big concepts are out of our control,
Right.
especially when you're so focused on patient care.
Uh-huh.
So what are some tangible things that nurses can do?
Well, first and foremost, remember the power of your voice.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to speak up.
Right.
Use those tools that we discussed, like SBR,
Right.
to communicate your concerns or observations effectively.
Like structure can be so helpful,
You can.
especially in those high-stress situations
Yes.
where clear communication is absolutely crucial.
It really is. And don't hesitate to ask clarifying questions. If something seems unclear or you're unsure about an order. Right.
It's always better to ask than to assume.
Yeah.
Remember, patient safety is paramount,
Absolutely.
and clarifying any ambiguities can prevent potential errors down the line.
That's such an important point. And it's not just about speaking up yourself.
No.
It's also about supporting your colleagues when they do the same.
Exactly. We need to create a culture
Right.
where speaking up is seen as a sign of strength and dedication to patient well-being.
Yeah.
So if you see a colleague hesitating to share a concern,
Right.
offer encouragement,
Okay.
let them know you've got their back, that kind of peer support can make all the difference.
Yeah. I love it. It's about creating a circle of support within the team.
It is.
Now, what about those in leadership roles?
Yeah.
What can nurse managers and charge nurses do
Right.
to promote psychological safety on their units?
Nurse leaders play a pivotal role in shaping the culture of their teams.
Okay.
And it's not enough to just talk about psychological safety.
They need to actively embody it in their actions and decisions.
So it's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Precisely one of the most important things that nurse leaders can do is shift that focus from blame to learning.
Right.
We touched on this with the accountability without blame pillar, but it's worth emphasizing.
Right. It's about moving away from that gotcha mentality
Yes.
that can be so pervasive in healthcare.
Exactly when a mistake happens,
Yeah.
the first instinct shouldn't be to find fault. Instead, leaders need to foster a culture of curiosity.
Okay.
Ask questions like, what happened? Why did it happen?
Yeah.
And most importantly, what can we learn from this
Right,
to
right.
prevent it from happening again?
That creates such a more supportive and collaborative environment.
It does.
It takes the fear out of making mistakes,
Yeah,
which, as we've discussed, is essential
it is.
for psychological safety and ultimately better patient outcomes.
Couldn't agree more. Another key aspect of leadership.
In this context is being proactive
Okay.
in seeking feedback from the team.
Right.
Don't wait for issues to arise before checking in with your staff.
Okay.
Regularly ask them how things are going, what challenges they're facing,
Yeah.
what suggestions they have for improvement.
And actually listening to what they have to say.
Right.
It's one thing to ask for feedback.
Yeah.
It's another to truly hear it and act on it.
Absolutely. Active listening is key. It shows your team that you value their input.
Right.
And that you're committed to creating that work environment where everyone feels heard and respected.
These are all such great points.
Yeah.
But we've focused on bedside nurses and unit leaders.
Right.
What about those at the very top, the CNOs and other executives who oversee entire hospital systems?
Right.
What role do they play in all of this?
They have a huge responsibility
Okay.
in setting the tone for the entire organization.
Right. They need to make it very clear that psychological safety is not just a nice to have, but a core value that is embedded in the hospital's culture.
So it's about making psychological safety part of the organization's DNA.
Exactly.
Not just something that people talk about,
Right.
but something they live and breathe every single day.
And that means embedding it into everything.
Okay.
From hospital policies and procedures to training programs and performance evaluations.
Right.
It needs to be woven into the fabric of the organization.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about creating that system where psychological safety is supported
Yeah.
and reinforced at every single level.
At every level.
What are some concrete steps that CNOs and other executives can take to make that happen?
One powerful strategy is to implement mentorship programs.
Okay.
Pairing experienced nurses with newer nurses can create that supporting environment where new nurses feel comfortable asking questions, seeking guidance. It can help them build confidence and navigate the challenges of the profession with a sense of safety and support.
That's a wonderful idea, having that kind of mentor.
Yes.
Someone who's been there and done that can be so invaluable.
Yeah.
Especially for nurses who are just starting out in their careers.
It can make a world of difference. Another impactful approach is executive rounding.
Okay.
Now, I know some people roll their eyes at the mention of executive rounding.
I've heard that.
But when done authentically and with intention, it can be a powerful tool for promoting psychological safety.
Sometimes it can feel a bit performative.
It can.
So what's the key to doing it right?
It's about making it a genuine effort to connect with staff at all levels.
Right.
CNOs and other executives need to get out of their offices, spend time on the units, talking to nurses at the bedside, truly listening to their experiences, their concerns, their ideas. It's not about checking a box.
Right.
It's about demonstrating that they value the perspectives of those on the front lines.
So it's about showing that they care about the people who are doing the work, not just the bottom line.
Exactly. And it's also about being transparent, sharing information about what's happening at the organizational level, being open to feedback, acknowledging the challenges that nurses are facing. That kind of transparency builds trust and makes people feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves.
It makes them feel seen and heard.
It does.
Which is so crucial for creating that sense of belonging and psychological safety.
Right.
Okay. So we've talked about strategies for bedside nurses, unit leaders, and executives. But I want to address the elephant in the room.
Okay.
What about those nurses who are listening to this and thinking, this all sounds amazing, but my workplace is nowhere near this. It's still a very fear-based, top-down kind of culture. What advice would you give them?
That's a really important question. And I know many nurses out there can relate to that feeling of frustration. It can feel daunting, even discouraging to think about changing a deeply ingrained culture.
Right.
But I want to emphasize that even small changes can make a difference.
So it's not about trying to overhaul
the
entire system overnight.
Right.
It's about focusing on what you can control.
Exactly. Start by implementing those team strategies. Within your immediate team or unit. Maybe it's something as simple as starting each team meeting with an open-ended question to encourage feedback. Or it could be consciously practicing accountability without blame when an error occurs. You might not be able to change the entire organization, But you can create that pocket of psychological safety within your own sphere of influence.
It's about planting those seeds and nurturing them.
It is.
Even in seemingly unfertile ground.
Precisely. And if you encounter resistance or pushback, remember that psychological safety is ultimately about patient safety. Frame your concerns in that context. For instance, you could say, I'm concerned that our current communication practices could potentially put patients at risk. That kind of language tends to get people's attention.
It shifts the focus to what really matters.
It does.
Which is providing the best possible care for our patients.
Right. And don't underestimate the power of persistence. Keep advocating for psychological safety. Keep having those conversations. Keep sharing the evidence that supports its importance.
You never know. You might just inspire others to join your movement.
That's the hope. And for those who are fortunate enough to work in environments that already prioritize psychological safety, cherish it, nurture it, and never take it for granted. It's a precious gift that benefits everyone, from nurses to patients to the entire healthcare system.
Absolutely. Now, I know we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
But we want to leave you with some tangible takeaways. Some things you can start doing right now to make your work environment more psychologically safe.
So no matter where you are on your psychological safety journey, there's always room for growth and improvement. Remember, it's a continuous process.
So let's get specific. What's one small but mighty thing that a bedside nurse can do today to foster psychological safety?
Here's a simple yet powerful action. The next time you see a colleague make a mistake, instead of gossiping or judging, offer your support. A simple, hey, we all make mistakes. I'm here if you want to talk about it, can go a long way. That small act of empathy can help create a sense of safety and encourage openness, rather than that culture of fear.
It's about shifting the focus from blame to support, which is so important.
Absolutely.
And what about for nurse leaders? What's one small but impactful change they can implement today?
At your next team meeting, start by asking, what's one thing we could do differently or better this week? Then truly listen to the responses without getting defensive. Just that one question can open the door to valuable feedback and create a space for continuous improvement.
That's such a great idea. It sets the tone for that collaborative approach to problem solving. Now, for those in executive positions like CNOs, what's a small but significant action they can take?
This might sound simple, but it's incredibly powerful. Walk the halls and talk to nurses at the bedside. Ask them how they're doing, what challenges they're facing, what ideas they have. And I don't mean a quick hello in passing. I mean a genuine conversation where you actively listen and show that you care.
That kind of visibility and accessibility from leadership can be huge in building trust and fostering psychological safety.
It's all about making those connections and showing that you value the input of those on the front line.
Absolutely. These are just a few examples, but they highlight that you don't need to wait for sweeping policy changes or grand gestures to start making a difference. Even small, consistent actions can create a ripple effect.
It's about taking those baby steps and building momentum over time.
Exactly. And remember, psychological safety isn't a destination. It's a journey. And it's a journey we take together.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive into psychological safety. We've learned that it's essential for building strong, effective nursing teams.
Absolutely.
And it has a direct impact on patient care. The team framework gives us a practical roadmap for making it happen.
It does.
And even small changes can make a big difference. So start by implementing one team strategy in your own work environment this week. Remember, we're all in this together.
Now we want to hear from you. What resonated with you most from today's episode? What are you going to try out this week? Head over to our website, healthcarenurses.net. And share your thoughts in the comments section. And don't forget to check out the Nurses Link Up app on Apple and Google Play. It's a fantastic way to connect with other nurses and build a supportive professional network. That's healthcarenurses.net for more resources. And download the Nurses Link Up app on Apple and Google Play. Thank you for listening to the Healthcare Nurses Network podcast.